He didn't raise his hand to impress anyone. He didn't have flashy boots or a last name that meant anything in that town. But when a trembling, malnourished gelding was dragged into the ring, bones sharp, eyes dull, everyone looked away. Everyone except him. And what happened next changed not just one life, but two. The dust swirled low over the dirt as trucks pulled in one after another, tires crunching over gravel. Redstone Pavilion buzzed with the kind of energy only a Saturday auction could bring. Men in crisp denim, women with wide-brimmed hats, kids chasing each other between trailers. The scent of hay, leather, and old sweat clung to everything. Up on the auction block, the show horses came first, shiny, groomed, and proud. Their hooves struck the ground like drumbeats. Bidders shouted numbers. Applause broke out when one mare sold for 15 grand. Then the energy shifted. Lot 47. The gate creaked open, and a different sound followed, a limp dragging through the dirt. Heads turned. What stepped into the ring wasn't majestic. He was a wreck, a chestnut gelding with hips too sharp, patches of missing hair, and eyes like dark puddles, empty, waiting. A thin halter hung loose on his face. The handler kept the lead tight, yanking him forward when he hesitated. The crowd reacted fast. Jesus, someone muttered, put him out of his misery. Another said. A few chuckled. One boy pointed. That one's headed for glue. And maybe he was. The auctioneer didn't even raise his voice this time, just cleared his throat and muttered, "Let's start the bidding, if anyone wants him." Silence. Near the back wall, under the shadow of the bleachers, a boy stood alone. No one knew his name. No one asked. He wore a plain t-shirt tucked into jeans that were too big, cuffs frayed from dragging in the dirt. A ball cap hung low over his eyes. He hadn't spoken all day, hadn't smiled, just leaned against the railing, arms folded, watching, and now he stepped forward. Just one step, didn't clear his throat, didn't raise a hand, just said, 25, not dollars an hour, not a joke, just 25. Heads turned, some snickered. One man laughed loud enough to echo, "You buying him or feeding him to the wolves?" The boy didn't answer, he just looked at the horse, really looked, and in that moment, no one noticed the other bidders, no one noticed the handler, or the heat, or the dust, or the flies buzzing around the gelding's legs. They noticed the boy, and the way the horse's ears tilted forward, just a little. The auctioneer hesitated. 25. Going once. The words felt too heavy for how light the bid was, but they stuck. Going twice. No one interrupted, and then sold. No applause, no cheers, just the quiet scrape of boots as the boy walked forward. The rope was handed to him without fanfare. The gelding didn't shy, didn't flinch, he just followed. Two lost things walking out of the ring, like they'd found what they were looking for. He had been there since the gates opened, leaning against the far post by the holding pens, a styrofoam cup of water going warm in his hand. People passed by without looking, not because he was hiding, just because he was easy to ignore. A skinny teenager in second-hand jeans, the knees blown out and mended with mismatched thread. His boots were scuffed down to the nail. His shirt had a name stitched on the pocket, but it wasn't his, probably never was. He didn't talk, didn't text, didn't smile at the feed store girls when they passed by giggling, just watched, quietly, closely. When the horses came through, those high-dollar colts with papers and polish, he didn't react. Some kids his age would have stared, eyes wide, mouths open, but not him. He studied them with a calm kind of stillness, like he was measuring something that had nothing to do with muscle or shine. A few folks noticed him once or twice, whispered, "That Shaw boy, ain't he?" "Nah, I think he's one of the Barker kids, or used to be. He's been in town a while, but I ain't never seen him ride." But nobody asked, nobody remembered his name. He didn't seem to mind. Around lunchtime, he walked to the vending machine, got a bag of peanuts, and sat near the fence with his knees pulled up, tossing one or two through the chain linked to a dog lying nearby. The dog didn't wag its tail, just lifted its head and watched him like it already trusted him. That was the thing about him. Animals didn't shy from him, people did. When the frail gelding was led into the ring, there was something in his body that shifted, not big, not obvious, just the way he sat up straighter, the way his eyes narrowed, not in judgment, but recognition. Everyone else turned away. He leaned in. The laughter didn't touch him, the jokes, the snorts, the muttered insults, they floated right past. He stepped forward without drama, no swagger, no announcement, just a soft, even voice that cut through the noise like a whisper in a church. 25. It wasn't a rescue, not the way people talk about heroes and saviors. It was simpler, sadder, like he saw something in that horse that mirrored a part of himself, tired, unwanted, and still holding on. And that horse, with his ribs showing and hope bleeding out of him, didn't flinch when the boy took the rope, didn't look back, didn't need to, because sometimes when you're lost, all it takes is someone who knows what that feels like to lead you home. The auctioneer hadn't even cleared his throat when the voice came. 25. It wasn't loud, wasn't cocky, just flat. Matter of fact, like a price on a bag of nails, not a broken horse. Heads turned, not toward the horse, but toward the kid. The auctioneer blinked, hand frozen mid-gesture. He looked around, unsure whether to laugh or keep going. Somebody did it for him. "You mean sense?" A man in the front row hollered, snorting. More laughter followed, sharp, cruel. "Hell, you paying us to take that bag of bones." 25. For what? Dog food. But the boy didn't back up, didn't smile, just repeated, louder this time. "That's all I've got, but I'll take him." And suddenly the jokes didn't sound so funny. The auctioneer glanced at the handler, who gave a small shrug. What were they going to do? Fight him for offering cash on a horse nobody wanted? The silence stretched thin, long enough for the flies to buzz audibly, long enough for someone's boots to creak on the bleachers. The gelding, skin hanging from bone, sweat caked on his flanks, stood still, didn't move, didn't twitch, just looked at the boy, one ear forward, one back, like he wasn't sure what was happening but wanted to believe it might be different from all the other times. The boy stepped forward again, not fast, not slow, just enough to shorten the rope between them. "Going once," the auctioneer muttered, like the words themselves were confused. "Going twice." He paused, looked around, almost hoping someone would raise a hand just to reset the universe, but no one moved, no one even breathed. "Sold. For 25. He said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. The boy reached out, took the lead rope in both hands like it was made of something fragile. The horse blinked, then took a step forward. No cheers, no claps, just silence. That thick, sticky kind that settles over a room when something real cuts through the noise. A few people scoffed and turned away. Others just stared, curious, confused, maybe even guilty. They'd laughed, they'd looked away, but now, they were watching something they didn't understand. The boy didn't look at them, didn't look at anyone. He looked at the horse, and the horse looked back, not like a fairy tale, not with magic or instant trust, but like two souls who'd been left behind one too many times, and maybe, just maybe, recognized that in each other. He led the horse out of the ring, no fanfare, no trailer waiting, just the open heat of the Texas sun. And for the first time that day, no one said a word. The receipt was torn at the corner, curled from the heat, and smeared with something that looked like grease or maybe old coffee. They handed it to him like they were doing him a favor, like they'd just let him take out the trash for a quarter tank of gas. The man behind the folding table didn't look him in the eye, just tapped where to sign with the tip of a chewed-up pen, then pushed a clipboard forward like he wanted it gone from his hands. The boy reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded 5, a 10, and 2 crumpled 5s, set them down neatly, then signed his name with a short, jagged stroke that looked more like a heartbeat than handwriting. Nobody asked for ID, nobody shook his hand. The handler who'd led the horse in stood off to the side now, arms crossed, kicking at a clump of hay with his boot. He didn't say anything when the boy walked up and gently took the frayed rope. "You sure?" he muttered, barely above the wind. The boy nodded. That was it. Transaction complete. He turned and started walking. No trailer, no halter, just his boots on dry gravel, and the sound of the gelding's uneven steps behind him. People watched, but not for long. They went back to their lemonade, their bidding paddles, their conversations about studs and pedigrees. He wasn't part of that world, and neither was the horse. They walked side by side through the dust-blown parking lot. The gelding stumbled once, catching himself just before going down. The boy didn't flinch, just slowed his pace, adjusted the rope and kept going. They passed a row of trucks. Some folks glanced out from rolled-down windows. One woman raised her phone like she might take a picture, then changed her mind. It was the kind of moment people didn't know what to do with. A boy too young to carry that kind of silence. A horse too broken to still be standing. And yet there they were. The boy stopped near the edge of the lot where the gravel gave way to a dirt trail, winding toward the tree line. He knelt down, unscrewed the cap from a battered thermos, and poured half into a dented plastic bowl. The horse drank slowly, nostrils flaring, water dribbling down his chin. No words, no pat on the neck, just presence. And then they kept walking. The gelding's head hung low, ribs rising with each breath. The boy's shoulders were square, but not proud, just steady. Not one person offered a ride, not one voice called out, but somewhere in the heat, and the stillness and the long dusty walk ahead, the boy never looked back, and the horse never stopped following. The road home wasn't paved. It was rutted dirt and gravel, the kind that stuck in your boots and turned to mud after one good rain. 3 miles, maybe a little more. He didn't count the steps, just kept going. The frayed rope wrapped once around his hand, the horse dragging his feet behind him like the weight of the world was caught in every hoof. The boy didn't talk, not because he didn't have anything to say, but because silence was the only thing the horse seemed to understand. He kept his pace slow, careful, let the gelding pause when he needed, let him breathe, didn't tug, didn't rush. The world had already pulled that horse apart enough. By the time they reached the edge of the property, the sun was starting to fade, spilling orange light over a rusted gate and a patch of overgrown weeds. The house was long gone, burned out in a storm years back, but the shed still stood, barely, leaning a little to the left. One window cracked, the roof patched with whatever scrap metal he could find. He'd been fixing it up, little by little, a place to sleep, a place to wait out the noise of the world. No electricity, just a lantern, a cot, and a radio that only worked on clear nights. But the corner stall, that had been ready for weeks. He led the horse inside, slow and steady, careful not to startle. A water trough, half full, a bucket of grain he'd been rationing for months. A clean blanket of straw, laid out like a quiet promise. The horse hesitated at the threshold. The boy stepped aside, gave him room, and after a moment, the gelding stepped in. Not fast, not certain, but willing. That was enough. He didn't try to pet him, didn't coo or whisper soft things. He picked up a damp rag, dipped it in a bucket, and started wiping the dried blood from the horse's legs, gently, methodically, like he'd done it before, like it was a ritual more than a task. He didn't flinch at the scars, didn't recoil at the smell, just worked, and when the wounds were clean, he dumped the bucket, refilled it, and sat nearby on an overturned crate, eyes never leaving the horse. He didn't say goodnight, but he didn't leave either. He unrolled a blanket near the stall door and laid down in the straw, one arm tucked behind his head, the other resting loosely across his chest. The horse shifted once, then settled, and in the dark, the kind of dark you only get far from town, the boy whispered one sentence into the quiet, "You're safe now," just in case the horse forgot. The days slipped by quiet as dust. Morning light came slow through the cracked shed window, casting long shadows across the straw, and each time Eli woke, he checked the stall first, before water, before food, before anything, just to see if Chance was still there. He always was. At first, the gelding barely moved, ate little, watched everything. He flinched at loud noises, tensed at the creak of a door, but he didn't bolt, didn't bite. There was a kind of resignation in him, like he'd already learned what happened when you fought back and lost. Eli didn't push. He didn't try to win the horse's trust like some prize. He just showed up. Every day, changed the bedding, cleaned the sores, walked the perimeter fence twice, once in the morning, once before dusk, made repairs with baling wire and borrowed nails. Some nights he didn't sleep much, just listened, to the wind, to the horse shifting in the straw, to the silence between them. When he finally gave the horse a name, it came out like a breath. Chance. He didn't say why, didn't need to. The name stuck, and Chance, skeletal, skittish, scarred, started to change. Not fast, not all at once, but little things. The way he leaned in, just barely, when Eli refilled the water trough, the way his ears flicked toward the boy's voice, the way he began to stand a little straighter, as if the bones beneath his skin were remembering what it meant to hold weight. Eli talked more now, not a lot, but enough. Bet they used to ride you hard, huh? He said once, wiping down Chance's side with a worn cloth, then dropped you soon as you weren't useful. The horse didn't respond, but he didn't pull away either. Another day, as they stood in the low light of a rainstorm, Eli ran his hand down the ridge of the gelding's neck and whispered, "I know what it's like when they leave you." There was no explanation, no story, just the weight of those words hanging between them. They never said what happened to Eli's parents or where he'd come from, only that he'd shown up in town 2 years ago with a backpack and a bus ticket stub in his pocket. Sheriff had tried to place him somewhere, but Eli had slipped through like smoke. Too quiet to catch, too stubborn to lose. He found this land by accident, or maybe it found him. Now, each evening, he sat on the edge of the stall, knees drawn up, notebook in hand. He didn't write much, just little things. What Chance ate, how long he stood, whether he'd let Eli brush him without flinching, and every now and then, he'd draw a small X near the edge of the page, a scar, marked down, remembered, shared. Not all scars are visible, but some, they recognize each other. The town talked like it always did in grocery store aisles, over gas pumps, through screen doors left half open. Not loud, but just enough to sting if you were listening. That boy's wasting his time. Horse like that ain't worth the hay. He'll break his heart before that horse ever stands proud again. They said it with the confidence of people who'd seen too many things end badly, too many horses left behind, too many kids trying to fix what life already gave up on, but none of them saw what Eli saw. They didn't see Chance rise to his feet on the second try instead of the third. They didn't hear the low, rough whinny that came when Eli walked into the shed every morning, quiet but real. They didn't watch how the horse followed him, head low but steady, like a shadow learning the rhythm of footsteps again. Change didn't come in fanfare. It came in inches, like how the open sores began to scab over, how the sharp ribs softened under layers of slow-earned weight, how his coat, once dull and patchy, started to hold a hint of red chestnut when the light hit it just right. A few folks noticed. A girl from the feed store, Anna, with freckles and chipped nail polish, started slipping extra oats into Eli's order when she thought no one was looking. "Overstock," she'd say with a shrug. "They'll throw it out anyway." The town farrier, Hank Monroe, came by one afternoon with his truck rumbling slow and loud. Eli stood out front, suspicious at first, until Hank leaned out the window and said, "Heard you got a project. Thought I'd offer my hands before you ruin his hooves. Trying to do it yourself." He didn't ask for money, just took his time, worked gentle, and said before he left, "That one's got some spirit still. You done good." The whispers didn't stop, but the tone began to shift. They still called Eli quiet, strange, maybe a little touched, but now they said it with a pause, a wrinkle in their voice, like maybe they weren't sure anymore, like maybe they'd misjudged. Chance stood taller these days, still thin, still cautious, but no longer broken, and Eli, he didn't change much, still didn't say more than a few words at a time, still walked like someone used to being overlooked, but there was a calm in him now, a steadiness. When he and Chance moved together across the field, through the tall grass, there was something wordless between them. Not command, not control, just understanding. The kind that doesn't have to be explained. The kind that once seen, makes people stop whispering and start watching. The sky cracked open just after midnight. It started with wind, low moaning, and restless. Then came the thunder. Not distant, not polite, but close, angry. The kind that makes the walls vibrate and animals forget everything they've learned. Chance did. One flash of lightning, and the calm Eli had built with him, day by day, breath by breath, shattered like dry glass. The gelding reared, eyes wild, nostrils flaring like fire through his lungs. He bucked once, then twice, then slammed against the corner post of the paddock. The old fence gave. Eli was out of bed before the second board hit the ground. No boots, no coat, just bare feet on wet dirt, heart punching against his ribs. Chance, he grabbed a flashlight and the rope, useless things in a storm like that. But habits are hard to break. Rain came sideways, cold and stinging. His shirt clung to his skin, his feet slipping in the mud as he ran. Branches whipped past, The beam of the flashlight flickered with every jolt of his arm. Still, he kept calling. Chance, come on boy, come back. No answer, just the wind howling like it wanted to swallow the world. Then footprints, hoofprints, scattered and wild, leading toward the river. He followed them, every step a prayer, every breath a question. What if the horse had fallen? What if he was already gone? He didn't stop to think, just ran harder, lungs burning, voice cracking against the storm. And then there, just beyond the tree line, a silhouette near the water's edge, trembling, frozen. Chance. The gelding stood stiff-legged, ears pinned, eyes wide with terror. The river roared behind him, swollen and fast from the rain. One more step, and he'd be gone. Eli didn't shout, didn't wave the rope or try to trap him. He just dropped to his knees in the mud, soaked to the bone, shaking. Please, he said, barely louder than the wind, don't leave me too. Chance didn't move. I know it's scary, I know it hurts, but I'm still here. His voice cracked, raw and hoarse. And I won't let you drown. Not you. Lightning lit up the trees, and for a second, everything went still. Then one step, then another, slow, shaky, but toward him. Eli held his breath. Chance lowered his head, his wet muzzle brushing Eli's forehead like a question answered. And in that moment, mud all around, river behind, the storm raging overhead, they didn't look like a broken boy and a broken horse. They looked like two things that had chosen each other, not because it was easy, but because it mattered. The air turned crisp by late September. Mornings came slower, wrapped in mist that curled through the grass like old breath. The leaves around Redstone flickered gold and copper, and even the wind felt gentler, like it knew something had changed. Chance no longer looked like a rescue. He moved smooth now, no limp, no hesitation. His coat caught the sun in deep chestnut tones, rich and alive. The scars were still there but faded, reminders, not warnings. He followed Eli without rope or prompt, his head level, his ears soft. In town, people started noticing for real, not with side eyes or whispers, with nods, with quiet, grudging respect. At the hardware store, a man named Burke, who hadn't said 2 words to Eli in a year, paused at the register and muttered, "That horse. He looks like he's got something to live for now." Eli didn't miss a beat. Just said, "He gave me the same," then took his nails and feed buckets and left without waiting for a reply. Word reached the stables on the north end of town. The owner, a wiry woman named Marla, came by one morning with a coffee in one hand and a pitchfork in the other. "You know horses better than most grown men," she said, squinting at Chance as he stood beside Eli, ears flicking like he was listening in. "I need help this fall. You want work? I got it." Eli blinked at her, then nodded once. That was all she needed. He started 2 days later, mucking stalls, grooming, doing turnout, quiet, steady, never late. Folks noticed, especially the older ones who remembered when the land Eli lived on used to mean something. "Kid works like he's got something to prove," one man said. "No," Marla corrected, watching Eli lead a nervous gelding into the round pen. "He works like someone who's already proved it, and just wants to keep earning it." Chance came with him sometimes, not always, but enough. And when he did, the kids at the stable circled wide around him, respectful, a little in awe, not because he looked perfect, but because he didn't, because he'd come back from something, and because the boy beside him hadn't walked away when it got hard. One afternoon, an old rancher passing by leaned on the fence, watching the two move together like gears in a clock. He tipped his hat and said, "You gave that horse a reason to live." Eli looked up, eyes steady, shrugged once. "He gave me the same." And just like that, the man nodded and walked off, like he'd seen all he needed to. Fall settled in slow, and Redstone started to see not just a boy and a horse, but a story they almost missed. A story of staying, of healing, of choosing not to leave. The fairgrounds looked different in the fall, warmer somehow, softer. The noise was still there, fiddles playing under tents, kids running with kettle corn, voices rising from the livestock pens, but it felt less sharp, less pointed. Eli stood near the edge of the arena, hand resting lightly on Chance's shoulder. The gelding shifted his weight, calm but alert, his coat clean and gleaming in the October sun. The old scars along his flank hadn't faded completely, but they didn't steal attention anymore, they just told the truth. No one had invited Eli to the Redstone Fall Fair, no announcements were made, no entry number, no judges, but people noticed when he showed up. They noticed more when they saw the horse. Whispers floated through the crowd. That's him. That's the horse from the spring auction. Didn't think he'd survive. Didn't think the kid would either. And now here they were, back in the same dirt ring where laughter once followed them out, like a curse. Eli didn't look at the crowd. He looked at Chance. And the horse, as if sensing something old in the air, stepped forward with a kind of grace that didn't need rehearsal. His gait wasn't flashy, but it was clean, confident, every step steady, every breath deep. They didn't perform, they didn't bow, they just were, and that was enough. The arena, usually buzzing with announcements and clapping and chatter, fell quiet, not for showmanship, not for trophies, but for the way a broken horse now moved, like he remembered how it felt to be whole. Eli walked with him, hand still on his shoulder, eyes low but strong. He didn't need anyone to cheer. He wasn't there for them. He was there because this is where it began, and endings deserve to be rewritten. Somewhere in the stands, the auctioneer who'd sold Chance sat still as stone. He didn't speak, just watched, and in his eyes a flicker of something like regret passed over, sharp and fast. A little girl near the fence pointed and whispered, "That horse looks like he's smiling." Maybe he was. By the time they made a full loop of the ring, the hush had turned to murmurs, then to slow, scattered claps, not loud, but real. Chance stopped near the exit gate and turned his head, not toward the crowd, but toward Eli, like he knew, like he remembered. Eli gave a quiet nod, not to anyone in particular, just to the ground, the sky, the moment. Then they walked out together, no ribbon, no applause chasing them down, but the silence they left behind felt sacred, like something had been put right, and for the first time the fair didn't feel like a place that discarded them. It felt like a place that had just finally seen. Eli never talked much about what happened that day at the auction, not to the folks in town, not to the kids at the stable, not even to the girl at the feed store who started saving him the good oats without being asked. If someone brought it up, he'd just shrug, maybe say he needed someone, and let the silence carry the rest. But in the quiet moments before sunrise, with steam rising off a tin mug, or late at night, lying in the straw near Chance's stall, he thought about it. Not with pride, with something gentler, something closer to awe. Because Eli didn't believe in fate, didn't believe in luck, or signs or stories written in the stars, but he did believe in timing. In choices, in the way something broken can look back at you and not flinch. In how a rope passed between two hands can feel more like a promise than a leash. He'd seen what happens when the world gives up on something. He'd lived it, watched it in the eyes of teachers, caseworkers, tired strangers who didn't bother learning his name. Chance had seen it too. That's why it mattered, what happened between them. Not because it fixed anything, but because it didn't require fixing to be real. Some horses get picked for speed, for looks, for pedigree, but not Chance. He was chosen when no one else wanted him. And Eli, he was the one who chose. No fanfare, no headline. Just a quiet boy in the back of a hot auction barn who saw through the ribs, through the mud, through the silence, and didn't turn away. And that's what stuck. That's what changed everything, because sometimes the ones thrown away carry more fight than anyone expects, more grace, more soul, the kind that doesn't shine under ribbons or sparkle in show rings, but holds steady when the storms come and the lights are gone. And sometimes, just sometimes, the person brave enough to see that isn't the loudest one, isn't the oldest, isn't the strongest. Sometimes he's just a boy with no name anyone remembers, walking barefoot in the rain, whispering please into the dark like it might still matter. Eli never tried to prove anything, but in the end he did. That strength isn't always about force, that love doesn't always announce itself, and that being chosen, truly chosen, doesn't mean being perfect, it means being seen, and that for a boy who had once felt invisible, and a horse the world had already buried, was more than enough. They didn't save each other, they simply didn't walk away, and sometimes, that's the bravest thing of all. If this story moved you, share it, because somewhere out there, another boy like Eli and another horse like Chance are waiting to be seen. Hit subscribe for more powerful stories of redemption, resilience, and quiet courage. Don't forget to like, comment, and ring the bell so you never miss a tale that reminds us the brave ones don't always roar, they stay.